people still attack John Mayer for Dear John, and that came out 30 years ago.
Okay, it came out not that long ago.
Honestly, it's really like she started it, and it's time for her to finish it. And I tried to talk to her about it, and she wouldn't speak to me.
What secrets are Taylor Swift, Jon Hamm, Phil Lewis, and more hiding? Well, stick around to find out. Some of Taylor Swift's musical inspirations have not been entirely impressed by the singer's not-so-romantic ballads. In 2012, John Mayer told Rolling Stone that he was embarrassed by the song Dear John after her third studio album, Speak Now, because it was kind of presumed to be about him. He said, "It made me feel terrible because I didn't deserve it." Apparently, he was blindsided by the song's release. "I never got an email, I never got a phone call, I was really caught off guard." He said Taylor was too big of an artist to stoop to what he thought was low-level songwriting. Now, in response, Taylor Swift claimed to Glamour that he wasn't the track's inspiration. She's like, "How presumptuous, I never disclose who my songs are about." But he's not alone in his gripes. In an interview on the Ellen DeGeneres show, Taylor revealed that her song Forever and Always was written with Joe Jonas in mind, and apparently Joe had called off the relationship over a brief phone call. Well, Joe took to MySpace to address his split, being like, "For those who express concern over the 27-second phone call, I called to discuss feelings with the other person. Those feelings were obviously not well received. I did not end the conversation, someone else did. Phone calls can last only as long as the person on the other end of the line is willing to talk." Well, in the summer of 2012, Taylor Swift made headlines once again for a reported whirlwind romance with Conor Kennedy, son of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Speaking to ABC News in October of that year, Taylor didn't want to comment on the relationship because she doesn't talk about her personal life in that great detail. She said, "I feel like you can share enough of your life in your music to still let people know what you're going through and how you feel, and still with all the connection." Well, the bone of contention wasn't just the 4-year age difference between the then couple, but the fact that the duo was first spotted getting cozy only a week after Kennedy had become legal. So when asked if Taylor kidnapped Kennedy by flying him out to Nashville privately, she was like, "How did I kidnap him? You can't kidnap a grown man. These are serious accusations." Well, apparently, Taylor had been studying the Kennedy family prior to the relationship. Folks had a lot to say when she bought a $4.9 million beach house near the Kennedy estate in Cape Cod, allegedly just to be close to the family. And after the couple broke up, she sold the place. So when Taylor and Conor were dating, she was also accused of crashing a family wedding with him against the bride's wishes. Conor's cousin, Kyle Kennedy, was tying the knot with Liam Kerr, and Mother Victoria was like, "I didn't want Taylor in attendance." She told news outlets that apparently the couple texted her an hour before the wedding and was like, "Hey, can we come?" And she responded with a very clear, "Please do not come," and they arrived anyways. According to Victoria's account of the events, she graciously let Swift know her name, showed her the door afterwards. But Taylor apparently paid her no mind. Victoria said, "It was like talking to a ghost. She looked right past me." Jon Hamm, star of Mad Men, took part in a violent university hazing in 1990 at the University of Texas that led to criminal charges, at least according to court and school records. The incredible actor had not been previously publicly linked to a lawsuit filed by a member of a fraternal social organization who said he was severely harmed, dragged with a hammer, and had his pants lit on fire. In the 1991 lawsuit, the inductees said Hamm participated till the very end. Criminal records show that, well, he was charged with hazing and received probation, and a separate charge of harm was dismissed. That chapter of the fraternity, by the way, was permanently disbanded. A rep for Jon Hamm didn't comment on the incident when it was brought to light in 2015, and the star himself didn't give much of a comment to Esquire in a later interview. In addition to his hit piece comment, he was bristling at the topic, and when he finally addressed it, he downplayed it as sensationalized. He literally said, "I wouldn't say it's accurate. Everything about that is sensationalized. I was accused of these things I don't do. It's so hard to get into it. I don't want to give it any more breath. It was a bummer of a thing that happened. I was essentially acquitted. I wasn't convicted of anything. I was caught up in a big situation, stupid situation, and it's an effing bummer. I moved on from it." So sure, none of the records were sealed. John wasn't famous when the incident happened, and his connection to the case didn't come to light until magazines reported on it. But the internet had opinions about how he talked about it, with one user on Twitter saying, "Jon Hamm addressing his hazing scandal in this profile is a great example of how not to sound sorry about hooking the claw end of a hammer underneath a freshman's you-know-what." Somebody else said, "Men like Jon Hamm were dangerous to be around on a college campus. Because if they thought hazing was okay, you can better believe they thought worse things were no big thing. Good men don't haze people. Men who do were trash." and that was according to Shades of Limelight. Fun fact, folks, there are more connections with mainstream Hollywood and the adult industry than you might think. Some major players such as Sylvester Stallone, Wes Craven, and Men in Black director Barry Sonnenfeld cut their teeth in the genre. It was also commonplace for many behind the camera to work interchangeably between the two worlds, sometimes using pseudonyms. So for example, cinematographer Wow Fernandez used names like Harry Flex for his adult film work, but he went under his real name for mainstream movies like Invasion USA, Friday the 13th, Final Chapter. In the early 1930s and then again in the 1940s, Joan Crawford was one of the most bankable stars in Hollywood. But before her star took off, there was a bit of a scandal that almost stopped everything. In 1923, a year before she first appeared on Broadway, Crawford reportedly starred in a movie called The Casting Couch. Now that name should give everything away, but in case you're a little bit lost, it was essentially an adult film. Crawford, trying to make ends meet and get her name out there, apparently starred in many adult movies around that time. Now she repeatedly denied her involvement, but researchers have found that sadly, she was blackmailed at the time because of the movie. Phil Lewis started his film career in the iconic 1988 comedy film Heathers. That movie centers around a slew of, crazy crimes, and that would become all too relevant to Lewis in just a few years. In 1991, at the age of 23, Lewis was arrested after accidentally taking the life of a woman with his car. The amount of fun fluids in his system was over 3 times the legal level, which even his own defense attorney called extraordinarily high. Lewis claimed he was unable to remember anything for nearly 10 hours leading up to the accident, which was deemed possible due to his extreme level of intoxication. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison, but was reduced to just 1 after he spent much of his sentence working with a prison-based theater troupe that highlighted the consequences of that kind of crime. Now, despite these rough years as a young man, he continued to land guest roles in shows such as Married with Children, Boy Meets World, and then got that lead role on Sweet Life, which we all know him from. Uma Thurman said that Quentin Tarantino both hand necklaced her and spit on her for different shots for different moments in the films Kill Bill and Pulp Fiction, and Tarantino confirmed these allegations but defended the reasoning behind them. Now, Thurman has said that Tarantino also pushed her into doing a dangerous stunt that ended in a serious car accident, and these are all things that I think should be talked about more. Tippi Hedren was Alfred Hitchcock's most iconic leading lady. Under his direction, she went from being a model to a respected actress, but unfortunately he wanted a little more than to just direct her on screen. He was reportedly quite obsessed with her and made a number of unwanted advances, which she rejected. She said, "He stared at me and simply said, as if it was the most natural thing in the world, that from that time on, he expected her to make herself available and accessible to him, however and whenever and wherever he wanted." Now, when Tippi tried to get out of her contract with him, he threatened to ruin her career, and then he followed through on his threat. Because he had her under contract, he was able to keep her on the payroll without actually employing her. He made sure to turn down any film offers that came in from any studios. Looking back, she has a pretty good attitude about the situation, saying he ruined my career but didn't ruin my life. That time when my life was over, and I still admire the man for who he was, but yikes. The Kennedy curse spares no man. Senator Ted Kennedy, younger brother of President John F. Kennedy, was driving over a bridge with politician Mary Jo Kopechne in 1969 when the car leaped over the barrier and sank into the ocean. And while Kennedy was able to swim to safety, Mary Jo didn't make it. Once Kennedy made it back to his hotel, he waited till morning to call the police and report the crash. It is thought that maybe Mary Jo could have survived if help had arrived sooner rather than wait the 9 hours. Why did he do this? Well, he didn't want to get in trouble with the law, so he waited until the morning when he had sobered up. Some folks think that maybe the entire incident was an attempt to take the life of Mary Jo for unknown reasons. Which, jeepers.